going? Hope y'all are having a great night. Welcome to the stream. How's everybody doing? We don't stream often to the old Twitch or YouTube, so hope y'all are having a great night. I'm finishing up one last chart, and we will get rocking and rolling. But we are live. We're on YouTube. I don't usually stream on YouTube. I got to make sure I'm not muting all the sources to make sure we don't have any like feedback and all that good stuff. None of that's fun. But thanks for stopping by. I hope y'all are having a good one. My day started to a great start. Nothing like getting thrown under the bus on a Tuesday, right? But we're just doing one more chart real quick, and we'll get this party started. But yeah, like I said earlier, I'm not exactly sure how much lag there is in chat. I will answer questions as they come, and I hope to provide plenty of background and all that good information, because I just want to clear the air. I want my name to be intact at the end of the night, because that's all that matters to me. I'm looking for the core current. CPU core current. Yep, that's the one. Then the VR MOSFET. I love data. Any of you guys love looking at data? I look at data literally like all day, every day. It's like second nature. All right, cool. Moving chart, and then we're going to slap some headings on here so we can be kind of official. I don't know if y'all want access to this data. Let me know. Data is good. Thanks, Matt, for the backup, the affirmation. This is what's the other one? Blender. So this is going to be Blender BMW, because I ran out of time. No PBO. And this side is core current. Yeah, and like I said earlier, if you guys are confused or have questions about any of this data, let me know. I don't want it to be lost in like translation, because that's never fun. To again have misleading information being thrown out there. I need to open up all of these YouTube tabs or Chrome tabs. We usually start our streams over on Twitch, twitch.tv/theturk at 8:30 or so, and I usually stream this stuff over there. And actually tonight we were gonna be overclocking this bad boy. This is the Supermicro C9 X299 PG300F. We started overclocking it last week, but we ran into some issues, some observations, and I still have yet to get word back from them regarding some of the issues. So we were going to do that tonight, but we're going to be looking at data, and we're going to be talking about the video from Hardware Unboxed. That's kind of the title of today's video. This will live forever on the YouTube channel, so went ahead and made all the thumbnails and all that stuff. But if y'all aren't aware, let me see. I'm going to pull that video up here on my gaming computer. And we're going to kind of hopefully make it as succinct as we can, but also make it as concise as we can. In order to just, get stuff out there, get the information out there, and then towards the end, we can kind of dig more into my data to kind of not necessarily refute what Hardware Unboxed said, but to kind of, give everyone a little bit of clarity as to, this is what the data looks like, this is what it means, and this is why we use this kind of data. Because, at the end of the day, of course, there's an ad popping up on YouTube. That's awesome. At the end of the day, we're engineers, we're scientists, we are people that love computer hardware, and that's exactly why I'm here. That's why I'm doing it. I want to show you guys kind of some of the behind the scenes and collecting data and making comparison stuff. Let me kill the volume here. And chat, let me know if things sound okay or if nothing's coming out okay. We're gonna kill the music. But we're going to capture, and hopefully Hardware Unboxed is okay with me showing their video. If not, I'll ask for forgiveness. And it's, whatever. I'm not monetized on YouTube, so it's all good. I just want to get that information out there. But this is, I already switched the scene. Perfect. This is Steve. This is the guy, one of the guys over at Hardware Unboxed, and he posted this video this morning. I think it was like 6 a.m. I don't know. Pretty early. I'm an early guy. I'm a dad. I deal with kids and stuff. But he's explicitly calling out Tom's Hardware for an article that was listed, I think, 4 days ago now. And there was some contention between his recommendation, Steve, versus what the Tom's Hardware reviewer, Thomas, posted to the site. And they are conflicting views. One outlet says, this is a pretty bad board. One outlet says this board's pretty good for what it's meant to do. And, not everyone's wrong. And, of course, not everyone's right here. And I'm taking neutral ground here, and huge disclaimer. All of my things that I'm saying right now are of my opinion. They don't, I'm not affiliated really with Tom's Hardware directly. I am a freelancer with them writing reviews. I actually do motherboard reviews, and you can check out my muck rack. I think it's down in the description of the video. But I reviewed a lot of the X370 motherboards and some of the X470 motherboards with Tom's back in the day. And I've kind of transitioned more to the high-end desktop side of things. I'm actually doing a lot of the Intel motherboards right now. So I kind of know what's going on, and I know some of the behind-the-scenes stuff that goes on as well. So let's just start off. I took some notes, and I really want to, I don't want to bash anybody. Again, this is purely just to get information out there. No one's really at fault here, and this isn't my article I'm defending. I just want to make some points regarding this. So, going into the video, I think it's right at around 2:01. This is the first chart that, let me switch the scenes real quick so y'all can actually see it. I think it's this one, capture scene. Yep. And of course, my picture is right in front of it. Is that a box I see on your cap? It's like an evil box. It's not Dropbox. It might be box. I don't know. I got it at QuakeCon last year, or the year before last. But anyways, back to the data. So this is the first piece of data that Hardware Unboxed presents, and they obviously show that, the MSI X570A Pro has really bad temperatures, and that you can't refute the data. It is what it is. He collected it. It's true. He's got some comparative data here as well. But one thing I noticed, these vCore values are, in my opinion, pretty high. I haven't touched any of the 3000 series Ryzen processors, so take that for what it's worth. I know for a fact some of the 2000 series and even Threadripper likes around 1.2 to like right at 1.3. So that's, one thing that stuck out to me really quick. Fair enough. And then going into the next chart, actually that wasn't the next one. He also had some corroborating evidence on some of the other MSI boards, showing a general trend that MSI's regulators' temperatures are, in fact, hotter than some of those out there. And, again, I can't complain. But I will say, though, where was it? 203? I think that's the one. I think in this part, I'm not going to play the audio, but he mentions that this is with a stock. It's not right here. Let's see if we can play it. Of course, it's not playing nice with me. There it is. Yep. So he said this data was from a stock 3900X. But then, of course, there it goes. Up there at the top, this is not running stock. This is running with Precision Boost Overdrive plus Auto OC, Auto vCore. That's not a stock setting. If you were to be running stock, you would be not running with any of those options enabled. So, that's not really, he's not telling the entire truth. Not saying that's a faulty thing, though, but, be careful what you're saying and backing stuff up. Then going into 323, I forget the words he's saying specifically here, but he did mention that, he couldn't test all of these boards to a certain spec and blah, 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 and everything's time consuming. I 100% agree. If y'all aren't aware with motherboard reviews, BIOS versions change all the time, and they change some of the underlying functionality of the computer pretty drastically. So, once, I think we saw it with the RTX. No, it wasn't RTX. It was the BIOS drop with the latest AMD cards, the 5600s, I think, or maybe the 5500s. I don't know. But like everyone had to respin their data again because they dropped to like a 0-hour BIOS update. So, it sucks to have to retest stuff. And I'll mention this going into some other points in the video. But yeah, retesting sucks. Data collection takes a lot of time, and some of the data I'll be showing later today. It took me literally since like 3 o'clock to collect this data, and of course take care of kids and stuff. But big shout out to all the hardware reviewers out there in the audience. It's a very humbling experience to actually go and collect this data, and being a aspiring reviewer, not a lot of people appreciate it. So hearing some of the harsh words he says about people that write for Tom's Hardware was kind of mean. So, let's keep it true. Let's keep it real. But let's go to 4 on the hour. I think here, yeah. So this is what he started talking about Steve, at Hardware Unboxed. He mentions that, buyers of motherboards are looking to get the best product they can for the price that they can pay. And unfortunately, that's not really the mindset that manufacturers are going for. They're trying to put out the right amount of features to match the right cost. So, when the manufacturer goes and says, I'm going to make a $200 motherboard, they go to a list and say, okay, I can provide this feature at $200. I can provide this at $200. I can't at this price, but maybe we'll spin off another, version, or, he mentions the Wi-Fi later on in the video. But it's like, you have to take as a reviewer, you have to take both perspectives into account. The manufacturer is putting a product on the market, and the consumer has to, buy that product. So as a reviewer, you got to keep all of that in mind and all that stuff. Not to say what he's saying is bad, but, it's just something to keep in mind going forward. We got some stuff in chat. To be fair, yes, he was called a liar. I'm a neutral third party in this. I'm not going to be getting in, actually probably not going to talk about much of the stuff in the later half of the video. I'm really here just to rebut some of the technical stuff and to clarify some of the data collection and test methodologies, just to get that out. Because, people are dogging on Tom's for, being shills and whatnot. I don't get paid directly by any manufacturers for any of my data I collect. I get paid by article. So that's kind of where I'm at. I could care less if, this B450 Gaming Pro Carbon is a piece of crap. It's my job to tell you guys if it's a piece of crap. So let's keep going. So going into it, they're starting to kind of refute some of the data they're starting to back up some of the data they collected on this motherboard. And then he goes and starts talking about some of the sites that corroborate his data as well. This one here, this is timecode 614. I don't have the site on the top of my head here. This site uses hardware info for its chart. That's the yellow bar there. Later in the video, Hardware Unboxed does brag on Tom's Hardware for using the sensor data in their article. And I'm like, that's not fair. But, I understand it. Sometimes manufacturers fudge numbers and whatnot. But I've talked with the hardware info guy, the guy that developed it. He has a really good SDK in terms of data collection for the thermals and stuff. If you're watching this, I hope you can give me that license, man. But from a VRM sensor standpoint, they have gotten better. They have gotten more reliable. On some vendors, ASRock's vendor VRM temperatures are not as good. But MSI's are pretty good, and I have pretty good confidence in how those are reported. So that was a fun little gotcha that I thought was fun. going into 653. This is the next site he references that is like good and reputable. They're running the test for 15 minutes. I know Hardware Unboxed mentions they test their workload. It's some blender that they put on loop, right? Oh, Hardware Unboxed. Thanks for coming by, dude. I appreciate it, man. I really am glad you're here. I would actually ask you if you could come into my Discord and we could chat it out in real time. But I want to get that right. Oh yeah, they have it on there too. Yes, you are correct. There, that was the green bar and the red bar. Yeah, exactly. It's not a gotcha. I didn't say it was a gotcha. I was saying that you were dogging on Tom's Hardware for using hardware info as a data source for their charts, while they're also providing it. So that's why it was there. So I might have said it wrong. I apologize. And you can go back and watch this video and get the full set of terms I said here. But back to this chart. This one's run for 15 minutes. I'm going to be talking about and clarifying the test methodology for some of the overclocking data and power measurement and thermal measurements we do. Yep, hardware info is the bomb. I love that. Sorry if I'm really nervous. This is like heart pounding. I usually do this stuff on Twitch, twitch.tv/theturk. We were just going to do some overclocking tonight, and I was like, I want to do this. All right, so let's go to 902. Trying to remember what he was talking about in 902. And I don't want to be playing the audio and stuff. Okay, so this is the overclocking stuff. So we can finally go to charts. I love talking data. I can talk data all day. We will talk my Prime 95 data first. So whenever I'm doing reviews, and again, I don't speak for Tom's Hardware at all. This is just the way I do my overclocking and my power measurements, thermal measurements. And this is just kind of where this data comes from and what it looks like. But for our purposes, Prime 95, small FFTs, no PBO is typically how we run our temperature measurements as well as our power measurements reported from a wall socket, like a kilowatt kind of thing. So what I did, of course, I was pressed for time to do this. I only ran this for, about 30 minutes or so. That's pretty standard for the power measurement as well as the thermal measurements for our sake here. And we can, again, you guys can talk to me in chat. But this is typically what the data looks like when you're doing this test. Here, the orange bar here is the VRM MOSFET temperature reported by Hardware Info. We'll talk about some of the reporting stuff as well. But that is this orange line, and you can kind of see that it tapers off and flat lines at around 82. Tell me if y'all can see that really well. Yeah, it's 81 degrees on the MOSFET. I think I measured ambient here. It's like 22 degrees here at my house. So we get a VRM MOSFET of around 81, and if you go and subtract the ambient, you can go back and look at my measurements. This was all, of course, we got to talk about it. This is the motherboard I have on hand. This is not the suspect board in question. I haven't touched any of the X570 motherboards. They moved me on to X399 and the X299 high-end chipsets. Let's swap scenes. But this is one of my favorite B450s, the Gaming Pro Carbon AC. I'm testing this right now on a Ryzen 7 2700X. So we are kind of comparing apples and oranges, but again, the point of this data is to talk about the test methodology, not directly comparing against the data that's on hand. Sorry about that, guys. Quad G34, it's going all right. I'm a little nervous, I just, I'm not usually in this big of a spotlight. Usually I'm over on Twitch playing some games, doing some overclocking. PBO is off by default on X570. Yes, that is one thing we do check before we do any of our standard performance testing. But users are allowed to go and turn on PBO if they want to. Yeah, it's almost a stock feature, but it's not stock. If you have to go in and change something, kind of like how XMP is not really stock and it's considered overclocking. I'm not a fan of PBO. I've got a video on my channel where I say it's not really useful, but take it for what it's worth. But again, this is the VRM MOSFET reported by Hardware Info. And here's the kicker. When we're doing VRM analysis on motherboards, it's not really a matter of what processor you've got plugged in, how many cores it's got. It's all about current and voltages and power. So like right now, this is on an R7 2700X. It's an older processor, so it's going to be a little higher on voltage. This is also a higher wattage than the suspect 3600X or 3700X. So this is, again, apples and oranges, but this is kind of showing the difference between or the methodology. So right now we're burning about 75-ish amps on the current rail, the V-Core, and that's actually not too bad. It's a little high, but again, we're running Prime 95 with small FFTs. This is just the standard. I could pull it up real quick. That's under downloads. Excuse me again. Sorry about that, guys. You just go up, open Prime 95, and click that button. That's all you do. That's what Prime 95 does. I'm not going to run it because I don't want to burn too much power. Another fun fact, we were talking about how long you run your workload. I actually took this data with Precision Boost Overdrive on. That's this chart. Let's throw it up here on the screen real quick. Again, VRM quality is kind of a nebulous term. You could always go and talk to, what's his face? He goes with Gamers Nexus a lot and is talking about the PCB analysis. I can't believe I'm brain farting on his name. But usually when they start talking about the types of MOSFETs and the types of drivers and the different types of chokes and stuff, that is more indicative of quality, as well as kind of like the phase regulator design. That's more tailored to VRM quality as opposed to just, what's the power or the thermals of a particular VRM design. When you start getting into really overclocking and really pushing things, that becomes really, really apparent. But as you start to go down the product stack from like top tier boards, mid tiers, and et cetera, the quality of a VRM is less of a factor. You want your temperatures to be low, of course. I'm not understating that by any means, but you could push an 8-stage VRM just as much as a 12-stage VRM and almost get similar stability running, again, not an extreme overclock. If you're only going to go maybe not precision boost, but if you're going to go a couple clicks above what the the standard rate is, you'll be fine for most parts. Buildzoid, yes, thank you. I'm nervous, guys. Give me a break. If you have the option of two motherboards, both cost the same amount, have the same features, but one board runs much cooler than the other, why would you recommend the hotter board? Exactly. I do not disagree with you, Hardware Unboxed. Again, this is talking about the hardware procedures and some of the data and why, both parties aren't wrong. I'm not saying both are right, but neither of them are wrong. But let's continue looking at the data. This is Prime 95, small FFTs, PBO enabled. I think I have the other data. Yeah, I got it. Let's put it side by side. Over here on the left, of course, you can't see it now because my fat face is on it. On the left, we've got the more stock setting. And then over here on the right, we've got Precision Boost Overdrive. As you can see, the MOSFET temperature is actually 10 degrees, almost 10 degrees hotter with PBO enabled on the small FFTs. And then, of course, our core current has increased by, I would say, a significant amount. This is right around, 85? It's gone up by 10 amps. So we are stressing the VRMs heavier, and we are pushing more power, or we're burning more current, and thus making our our MOSFETs hotter. So this makes sense. And if you're comparing PBO versus non-PBO, it all kind of makes sense. And again, going back into the time, on the left, small FFTs, no PBO, running right around 30-ish minutes. And here on the right, this is a full hour. I went ahead and measured that on the clock. And you can see after about, 20, 30 minutes, the temperatures really kind of stabilize. And another feature you'll see with Prime 95 is there are cycles going on with the small FFTs workload. And that's why that power kind of fluctuates, because they're changing up. I forget what the actual variable is, but they are changing some of the calculations that are going on within the stuff. Especially when one of them is over 100C. Yes, 100C is not a good temperature to have, but from a regulator perspective, it's not, the end of the world. Buildzoid probably could confirm this too. Most of these regulators are designed to run are spec'd up to like 125C. So there's even still some thermal headroom on the regulators, according to the MOSFETs on Hardware Info, that they can still push the thing if you would want to. Some would say that 1.35 is still a high voltage for a Threadripper, not a Threadripper, but a Ryzen processor. So this is Prime 95. This is kind of what Tom's Hardware, or myself, I'm not speaking for Tom's again, this is what I would use for thermal data collection and power data collection. This is not what we would do with our overclocking. That's a completely different topic. We can talk about it later if we want. But this chart on the left, of course you can't see it because of my fat head. This chart right here is what was reported. So that's Prime 95, small FFTs, no PBO. So let's take a quick look at Blender. Again, I don't know the exact Blender workload that Hardware Unboxed is running. We do know that they're running a loop of a Blender render. I don't know. But what I did was I went and downloaded the Blender benchmark tool. It's free online. Do all that if you want. Oh, I don't disagree with your hardware. 115 is hot. It's spicy. But again, you're also running PBO enabled, and you're running Auto OC, which is again not stock. But that's again one of the pieces of debate here. Who's testing it right? Who's testing it wrong? I don't think either are testing it wrong. They're just different sets of data. Benchmark tool is very simple. Gooseberry, cool. I don't remember if Gooseberry's in here. I don't want to submit results. Again, I apologize for being nervous, guys. Presenting data that you didn't collect. Well, I collected this data, but like someone else's data is it's a little nerve-wracking. And I hope I'm being concise. I don't want to be butchering it. Where am I going? I'm going downloads, right? Yeah, there it is. I think Gooseberry's in here. Oh, it's not. Oh, well, I ran these. These are the ones I ran. BMW, Classroom, Fishy Cat, Coro, Pavilion, Barcelona, and Victor. Those are the workloads I ran for my data collection. And to compare apples to apples, actually, I don't want to close that one out. Excuse me. I want to look at my Prime 95 PBO data. There it is. Cool. So chart here on the left, you can't see it. It will be on the left behind my head. But here on the right, let's get the scales correct. Zoom 100%. Zoom 100%. Cool. So the scales are marginally the same, but we'll take a look here. So this is actually about a full, that's a little longer than a full hour. But this is on the right is the Blender benchmark with PBO enabled. And the color on the orange color is the VRM temperatures. And what you'll notice is we see kind of a zigzag, and that's because your workload is changing. And as your workload is running, the VRMs are getting hotter, and that's in turn going to make, the power draw a little more. We could throw all sorts of different data up here if you want. But you'll also notice that with PBO enabled with Prime 95, we're right around 90 degrees Celsius. we don't get that hot. So hardware, you're actually underreporting your temperatures. You could have made it even worse. Yes, I would have bought the Asus board. For the same price, yes, I would have bought Asus. We can talk about that here in just a second, hardware. I'm getting to it. I would say that the conclusion and what followed is the larger issue, not necessarily the testing. That's true. We could talk about that too. But at the end of the day, with this data right here, Blender's actually not as harsh as Prime 95. And if you're running, and this is a test methodology thing, if you're just running, let's say, whatever this one is, I think that might have been the last test. What is there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That might have been the 6th workload. I don't remember what the name is. But if you're running that on a loop, you're actually going to get higher boost clocks because your currents actually looks like it's going down, so you probably could be boosting up. But if you're running, you got to be careful which workload you're picking because you might not be picking what you're wanting to pick. Maybe I'm not saying that right. Yep, MSI did admit, and let's be clear, I'm running nearly 90 degrees C on this B450, running the 105 watt 2700X. That's pretty toasty. You know, it's not cool by any stretch. So, you know, maybe this is a habitual thing that MSI has just been trying to get away with. I don't know. But again, this is not, you know, alarming to me at least. Going back to the non-PBO data, so let's go back to, is that it? Nope. This is all the fresh data I collected, and I kind of just made this Blender render right here. So over here, data again, Blender on the right, Prime 95 on the left, no PBO on both. My VRM temperatures, if I'm only running the single instance of Blender BMW, my VRMs are only getting into like the low to mid 70s, which is not that hot. So again, we got to be careful what we're running if we're going to be reporting accurate data. And I can say that, what is that, 5 minutes? 5 minutes into Prime 95, that's right here. We're almost at our plateau. So I would even argue that Prime 95 for a short, quick sniff test might be better for a, you know, power measurement, temperature analysis kind of thing. All right, so I think I've talked about the way the data is collected, the type of the workload that's run. Again, all of this data that was showed today is not apples to apples what was presented in either of the videos. And, you know, I'm here as a reference. But yeah, let's start talking about some of this other stuff. And this will all be on the YouTube. Y'all can check it back later if y'all want. And sorry if your face is on here. I wonder if that's weird. If you're ever like watching your own video and you see your face just on it, that's kind of free. Actually, no. One time I got stream sniped, and the guy made like a highlight reel of it, and like I remember like having a sense of pride, being like, "Yeah, I got stream sniped and put onto YouTube. That was funny." The issue was claiming to have dispelled the belief MSI X570 motherboards run hot by running a 65 watt CPU. I agree. We should have used, or I'm not speaking for Tom's at all. I'm independent here. But yes, in an ideal world, we would have access to whatever processors and whatever kind of graphics cards we want to test these things adequately. In the real world, as a motherboard reviewer, we don't get pick of the litter on processors or motherboards. We are kind of stuck with what we're able to get our hands on. I had to beg, borrow, and steal to get my Threadrippers at points, and I only just recently got a 2990WX. I've had to broker deals and stuff to get access to hardware and put it on loan and all that stuff. So it's like, in an ideal world, yes, we would put the heaviest config we could on any motherboard and do our analysis. But I think you mentioned the ASRock board, the Tai Chi one. Let me see if I can pull that picture up with a time code. It wasn't in there. We're not going to be talking about his response. I can't speak for Thomas, unfortunately. I forget the time code. Using a 3700X is fine if that's all you have. You should make the claims that Tom's review made. You could argue it. I would say you could argue it. Again, it goes back to the power draw that a VRM is able to do versus the way you're going to be running it. You can definitely simulate a lot of stuff through power draw. I kind of tried to show that with my Prime 95. We can play with the data a little bit if y'all would humor me. So, of course, I don't have my switchers. I do this kind of stuff for a living, futzing with data and playing with Excel. So one thing you can always do to not fudge, but play with the data. Let's throw the charts back up. Of course, you can't see it. There we go. He only showed stock 3700X. Yes, because that's what he did, and that's the kind of the operating procedure for that. One thing that I do, and again, y'all can go and check my reviews as well. When I really start to do my VRM testing, I'm doing it in the overclocking section because I want to push the thing above and beyond what it's meant to do stock. And that's where I start to report like the VRM temperature. I think I can, especially on my Threadripper builds, because you're really regulated by the temperature and the power that you're drawing. He didn't show a max OC. I thought he did. I can pull that up later. But I want to show you some funny stuff you can do with hardware info data to kind of help, not to fudge numbers, but you can simulate stuff. And of course, actually we'll keep MOSFETs over there. Is that voltage? Yeah, CB core voltage. We'll put the MOSFETs on the left. Format data series. Boom. Secondary access. Okay, cool. So this is the voltage. One thing you'll notice is with Precision Boost Overdrive enabled, this sensor reporting, I hate this. I wish I had an oscilloscope. I could just solder to this thing. But anyways, this is running when you're at idle, 1.45 volts or setting 1.45 volts. And then once you turn the workload on, the voltage drops quite a bit. An easy way to simulate a higher power part is to just simply increase the voltage, because you can't necessarily increase the current draw. A workload's only going to pull as much as it can, but you can kind of coerce the system into running at a higher load or power wattage just by increasing the voltage. So maybe that's something that could be enhanced or added to reviews. I don't think it would happen in without people saying, hey, you got to do this. But yeah, you could definitely simulate it. Let's also see set package power. We'll get rid of core voltage. Oh yeah, hardware. I'm definitely not I'm trying to be careful with what I say, because this is the internet. You never know who's going to be like watching. Sometimes people get heated, especially when you like defame their work. I know when I watched this video this morning, it was like I was called incompetent, and then you read the comments and everyone's saying, "Oh, Tom's Hardwares are full of idiots. These guys are dumb." It's like, well, no, that's not an accurate statement. You guys got to check yourself. But at the same time, some people can say foolish things, and we do have to have a little bit of grace and take things a little slower sometimes. But yeah, I mean, this is why I'm doing this. I want this to be open. I want to share data. I honestly like, not hardware bot, like the way Userbench shares data. I wish there was more of a universal tool that we could all put our standard stuff, or Userbench, that's what it's called, where we can put all of our reviewer data. That way we can collate and all that stuff. Well, Thomas is also a staff writer with Tom, so he has a little more sway. You know, like I could actually be told by doing this video today that I can no longer write for Tom's, and I'm kind of okay with that. That's one of the things about being a freelancer. Oh, dang. That's count. We don't want count. Count's dumb. Boom. There it is. Cool. So this is another thing we can also do is we can look at the CPU package power that's printed out by Prime 95 with hardware info, and we can compare, you know, what the thermal output is versus what the power output is. Because if you go in and do like a core by core scaling analysis, you could also kind of extrapolate, you know, what would a core power look like if you multiplied it by 2. And you can also do that and use some other fun calculations with some of these core power numbers. So that'd be kind of a fun thing. It's like, how do you simulate and verify a fake processor? I don't know. Maybe that's good. Vamps, I saw that. I will allow it. That's why you guys are 2 of my favorite hardware reviewers. Quad, I appreciate you saying that. I do appreciate it. That's actually all I've really had to talk about against the article. Again, I'm not going to say anyone's right or wrong. I will say that y'all are both parties have the proper analysis of the review. The VRMs do get hot. There's no debate about it. Actually, fun fact, I wrote this down. When I was running the blender, because there was the thermal gun, y'all didn't like the thermal gun. I agree 100%. I even suggested we should start using thermocouples because that's the way the rest of the reviewer industry is going. But they never responded. But I did do a thermal gun analysis on here too. During the PBO blender, of course, I wrote it down because it's hard to track data on a thermal gun. I was getting 65C on this VRM, and then when I was running the Prime 95 with PBO on, I got 73. So I think the thermal gun is useful as a secondary data verifier. If your thermal gun temp is increasing and your hardware info sensors are increasing, the likelihood that your data is going to be fairly close, or fairly accurate, I should say. One thing I even started doing with my Threadripper builds is I stopped doing the thermal gun and just only reported hardware info, just because the thermal gun is not a very accurate tool. I will say that. Hardware Unboxed, I appreciate that, man. I have a full-time job. You can check me out on LinkedIn if you want. I actually do hardware development for a living. So this kind of stuff, I do it all the time. We're still on this big chart. That's dumb. But yeah, I love doing hardware reviews, man. It's fun stuff. I actually got this motherboard coming up. This is Intel X299. No one cares about Intel X299 these days. We were going to overclock that time. Yep, I have tried to improve the emissivity settings and stuff. The problem is everything's so damn shiny. So, oh yeah, this is easy stuff. Yep, this is easy. I wish I had more access to some of these like points. Again, I wish I had a multimeter I could just solder to some of these chokes just to get an accurate value, because I don't know if I just don't know if what these. One thing I like about Intel motherboards more so than AMD is the AMD stuff, you can't really tell if it's the set voltage or the sense voltage, and then other motherboards, they don't report it the same way. So it's kind of difficult to trust that the voltage you're setting is what you're actually getting. But with Intel, especially, and I'm learning this, I've been doing AMD reviews for 5 years. With Intel, you set the CPU in voltage, and then you just tell the processor, run at this voltage, and it says, okay, Dad, and it does it. And I love it. That's why I love overclocking Intel stuff, except it's not as granular. So, ooh, man. So question to you guys, did I cover all that I can cover in this discussion? Again, I don't speak for Tom's. I can only speak to the test methodology that I use and the way I report the data. We talked about some of the, I wouldn't say discrepancies, but some of the observations from Hardware Unboxed video. Also talked about some of the discrepancies in the Tom's hardware. I'm not being too unfair to either party, I'd say. Yep, SV12 readouts are very accurate. That's what I've heard too. And I've talked to the guy that wrote this tool, and he's swears by it. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll do it. I'll trust you. But I do wish I had some thermocouples. Yep, and that's just another piece of hardware. I know Gamers Nexus does some of the 12-volt clamp stuff. I just don't have access to that tool, but I think the way we're reporting power for the CPU is fairly accurate. And from a motherboard perspective, I think system power from the wall it's granular enough. I mean, you could get finer grain stuff. I'm in an awkward position to discuss this subject. What do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have any of this. Yeah, this isn't up. I keep seeing your face just popping up on my screen. Usually we don't have YouTube videos just staring me down. It's like an interview. You could barely dodge this awkwardness. I will say that if the day that I get called out in a video, I'll probably be a little more animated. I'm glad I wasn't explicitly called out in this. Boo. I will say though, I've got a couple motherboard reviews on the YouTube channel. I did the Asus X299, their Gaming 2 board, their new revision for the 48 lane processors, and I did a Zenith Extreme build. Ooh, no, I did one of the videos. Can I drop links in my own chat? Sorry if I'm shilling now. So y'all know yeah, I'm going to get this link. Totally shilling that. Or self-promoting myself. I'm allowed to do that. So if y'all watched, I think Tom's did a review about this as well. Garrett Carver did the covering for it. But Linus Tech Tips also did a video with it. But the Pro Siphon cooler is freaking awesome. And I broke some hardware bot records with it. It's pretty cool. I try to be a level-headed, especially when it comes to engineering and data and doing lab stuff. I try to keep myself out of it, because if the data supports one fact or another, it supports it. But we can spin the results to reflect whatever we think the data says. So, message retracted, Matt. Come on. But that's all I've got today, guys. Fair enough. Life tip, cool. But that's all I've got on this topic. I do have my test bench up. So usually I'd be streaming this to Twitch, twitch.tv/theturk. We're going to be overclocking this X299 board. I do have to kind of get under the table. Fun fact, I do all of my reviews in a closed CPU case, just so that some of the stuff that was talked about in this video doesn't come up, and I can just say, guys, I do it the way I do it. But I've got it built in this case here, the X299. We could do some overclocking on that, or we can call it the end of the stream. Number one, only look for Turk reviews. Too bad they only come once a month, right? I wish I had more time. I would do it if I had more time. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop looking at Steve's face here. And Steve, feel free to reach out on Twitter or Discord or whatever if you want to talk about anything, or if there's follow-up articles. I don't know what you're gonna do next. But I'm gonna go unhook this computer, and I'm gonna hook in my other test bench, and we're gonna start doing some X299 overclocking, because I do need to get this article out, because the Tom's people need some articles. Super micro overclocking. Thank you for staying up. I know it's super late for you, dude. Thanks for watching, man. I'm going to go plug this stuff in. We're going to keep this overclocking show going. I get to upset a different crew of nerds. Now it's the overclocking people. I'm not a professional overclocker by trade, but I do mess with voltages and frequencies all the time. So I'm going to throw some music on real quick. Going to go on the not the BRB sing, but that's where my name comes from. Nice. All right, cool. Let's throw this scene on right quick. Yeah, BRB scene. All right, cool. Hang tight. We're going to do some overclocking. 5 gigahertz. We can do it.